Hello, everyone. First time going live, isn't it? Trying out a new tool, but I didn't want to do it just for nothing. So I'm actually going to record live migration, and this is the app that I'm going to migrate. It's an app I've been building a few years ago, and it's working fine. What it does, it's basically giving you scores for stocks, with the idea that you can analyze a stock like Apple, for example, just based on these scores. Now, this has been a pet project for me for a few years, and not doing as much with it anymore as I hoped I would. But it's still useful, and I figured like, hey, I can migrate that to Swift 6 and Strict Concurrency uh, on this live stream, and yeah, just show you along the way how I kind of do it. And as you can see, I'll start sharing my screen. Maybe that helps. Let me see. Okay, so all right, so you can see my screen now. It's pretty small for build settings. I can't really change that, but let's at least look at the simulator. So this is the app, right? So what it does, it allows you to add a symbol, for example, the Apple stock, and yeah, as you can see, you can kind of like rate each stock based on scores. And yeah, this app, I've had this for a while, but I didn't really do a lot with it anymore. So it's currently not up to date on strict concurrency. And yeah, that is my goal today, to migrate this to not targeted, but to complete strict concurrency checking, as well as Swift language version, which is now Swift 5. And I want to set that to Swift 6. And I'm not alone. I got my own course right here. I created the course for many of you, but I also still use it myself to reference the learnings that I did over time. So yeah, follow along if you will. I'm just going to do what I always do, working in Xcode and developing apps. And hopefully this is in any way useful for you. Now, I always like to check a few things. Default actor isolation is currently set to non-isolated. Might want to change that to main actor later. And then upcoming features. So mostly this one is going to be interesting. I might want to update that later on. But for now, I feel like the best way forward first is nothing with approachable concurrency. I first want to have strict concurrency turned up. So let's see what that does. I built the project. And yes, in live streams, we need to wait for builds to complete as well. But hey. Yeah, so this is the fun, right? A lot of warnings go up. And this is the moment where you could consider, right? Okay, like, are all these warnings worth fixing? A lot of main actor, right? So let me search for main actor actually. You see that? A lot of main actor things. And this is a rabbit hole, right? Like, it's very likely that if I start adding main actor everywhere, like here, some warnings will go away, but I will likely introduce new warnings in other places. So I guess for this project, it's not a bad idea to see if we keep this to complete. And we go to default actor isolation. Like many apps can be single threaded and don't require any performance optimizations in that place. And yeah, it could be that this is actually a solution already. So let's see what it does. So the warnings were up and above 600, and now we only have 154. That's already better, which means that a lot of things were related to main actor actually. But we now did get a few real issues. So some of these things are a bit more difficult to solve, but I actually think that it's worth upgrading the defaults package in this case and see what that does. So, and I like to go back and forth, right? So we can just go back, do this. So it's now restored to non-isolated, and when I now build a project, it should at least succeed again, which is helpful if you update packages. And for now, I want to update this defaults package. Uh, let me just see if I can open it quickly on Git. And I wish actually, there was like some kind of like open in Git here. But either way, I've got the link right here. So let's do that. And so this is what I like doing, right? So I go here and I see like which is the latest version. So it's actually 9.06. So now my goal is to get this one up. Uh, so it's also been a while since I've worked on this project, which is actually helpful for this video because you will see me actually struggling. 9.0.6. Okay, let's see what this does. We update the project, and then we built again. Build succeeded. All right, that is at least great. And then we had okay, it's not in my back history anymore. Let's turn back on the default actor isolation and verify whether the package is actually updated. It's not. Okay, that doesn't help. Update package. No, I need to keep this like that. Why isn't it not updated? So it probably means that some packages reference it as well. Here you go. So we need to update this actually as well. So 9.06 and this one as well. These are packages I created myself. These are helpful packages with reusable code that I use across my apps in Rocket Sim as well. I kind of had the idea, right? Like the more packages I create that are reusable, the easier it becomes to maintain stuff. And yeah, the same thing will count for this. I'm going to update this package as well later on. And all my apps benefit, basically. That is the idea. Okay, let's see if the package has been updated. It has, so that is great. Let's build the project to see if we need to migrate anything. So the reason I'm also updating this package, I know the developer from the package, or at least I don't know him, but I know that he's maintaining his project as well. It's very likely that he solved quite a lot of concurrency issues, right? So the more up to date the packages are, the better. Actually, also counts for diagnostics. Let's see. This is also an outdated one. It's using master. That is okay. Let's see. Yeah, this is still the old location. It now needs to be, because I took it over. Let's actually see it, right? So we have SL logging. We can turn that up to 6. I'm actually wondering if 6.2 works. And then build this project alone. That's succeeded. That is good. It feels almost too good to be true. Yeah, trust and nail. That's the macro from that package. That's okay. All right, so you can always make sure Swift language version that this is not set to v5. Then you know that it's Swift 6. But for now, this is fine. And let's see if diagnostics updated. So, it's no longer there. How come? So let's make sure that this is actually existing. It should be. It's 6.0, but this is an old release. That's why I want to use master. I need to use main. That changed as well. Okay, let's see what it does. So I'm kind of waiting for diagnostics to show up here again. There we go. There it jumped. Right. So now I'm sure that I have the latest version. Now I'm wondering what the results will be. Yes, that is fine. I can update this to 16. And this is always the case, right? Like I'm an indie developer. I can just bump the version up wherever I want. This is not possible for everyone, but the diagnostics package, and this is how long I didn't update this package, right? But the diagnostics package requires me to set it to 16 at a minimum, and I'm actually fine to support 16 and up. I might even drop 17 and 16 as well later. But let's see how this goes. All right, so we got our first issue here. Log may have shared mutable state, and now we need to find out why. Yeah, the pass-through subject. Now, what is interesting, this class, I actually have solved this before in Rocket Sim, and it's probably in Rocket Sim no longer uses this package, but I did update it already, and we can basically learn from it, right? So we can mark it as sendable as we did here. Let's just do that, right? So we go back and we say log type is sendable. Well, what this will do, it will probably give us more interesting insights on what to do. Combine. Did we even? Yeah, we did that here as well. So the pre-concurrency one is interesting, right? So combine is not, sendable, and this error subject will never become sendable either. This is very much a question for yourself to answer in those cases, like how is this error subject used, and can you rewrite it to like an async alternative? And for my case, I know that it's fine to use pre-concurrency here. The way it's being used, it's not per se risky for thread safety. And I want to make sure that this is already sendable, because all the types underneath are sendable too, but this makes it just more explicit and kind of like makes my code a little bit more safer. All right, so this package, we actually migrated it. That is pretty great, and I don't really have much to do here anymore. Let's see if we go back to the main project, because I feel like that is most interesting for this live stream. Right. So this one is private. What is tricky is that it's been quite a while since I worked on this project. So of course this doesn't work. The user default reporter was removed, and sometimes, so for example, this is for diagnostics reporting. I'm not using the diagnostics reporting that much for this app, so you could kind of like comment this out for now, because you don't want to focus your time on it. So you could say like to fix this later, but even better would be to actually open a GitHub issue for it and solve it properly. This has more to do with migrating diagnostics itself. This needs to be an async function, so we can actually make this a task, and then it creates this needs to be on the main actor later on, so we can do it like that, and then wait. Outside of the actor, yeah, that makes sense. And we need to make this main actor again. But like I said before, what I'm now doing is basically manually adding main actor everywhere, and that is not an ideal way of doing this, because you need to go throughout your whole project. And for existing projects, this is a difficult decision, right? Like, will you go over all your code one by one, or will you turn on default actor isolation to main actor and potentially run into a lot of performance issues? Totally depends on your app, how big it is. And for my app, for those that didn't see it, it's pretty straightforward app, right? It does a few requests, but nothing much like image processing or those kind of things. A lot of things could probably actually run on the main actor. So I like to just go for that route. But for now, we need to first fix this build error about the minimum deployment target. What is it about actually? Log extensions. This in SL purchases. All right, so we need to update that package as well to support minimum of 16. Makes sense. Not gonna update this package yet. First want to make the project build again. Still build failed. Amplitude and Datadog as well. Makes all sense. So we have an amplitude package. Can update that to 16, and we have a Datadog package. We can update that to 16 as well. All right. Build succeeded. All right, that is great. Let's go back into the build settings. Default actor. Changes to main actor and build. So we have 585 warnings on the top right corner right here. Let's see what it does. Yeah, the font is too small. Yeah, that is a good point. I wish I could zoom in my screen. Maybe I can sometimes just do this, right? Oh, you don't see that in the live stream. That is a pity. I'm actually zooming in now with my mouse. That doesn't work. But yeah, when I'm in code, I can at least make the font a lot bigger. There you go. Not sure if you're still there, but this must be much better. Let me know if not, and then I can change it again. All right, so we went down from close to 600 warnings to 165 warnings and 20 errors. And this is still a lot of warnings and a lot of errors, but it feels like a bit more approachable. And yeah, now is the question, where do you want to start? Because there's a lot. And what I think we need to do, and that's another thing that I also mentioned in my course, is non-isolated non-sending. You kind of like want to remove a lot of the potential warnings that show up, right? So remember the 165 warnings, and let's go back to the build settings, which unfortunately doesn't allow me to zoom. So what we do again, we want to make a project buildable again. So we turn it back to non-isolated. And the project builds, the warnings go up again. Build succeeded. And now we're going to non-isolated, non-sending. We're going to migrate this upcoming feature, non-isolated, non-sending by default. And this eliminates a lot of isolation domain hopping. And if you don't hop to a different isolation domain, there's nothing that will be sent across an isolation domain. So yeah, that will likely reduce the number of warnings quite a bit. So let's see how it goes. And what it now does, this is a migrate option, and the warnings are probably too small for you to read, but you can see it in this screen later on. Let me filter. Hey, did the warnings go away? No, here. Feature non-isolated non-sending by default will cause non-isolated async instance method default result to run on the callers actor. Use add concurrent to preserve behavior. So now the question here is per method that gets this warning. And I need to filter on feature non-isolated. So now I get all the warnings that relate to this upcoming feature, and those are quite a few actually. Now you need to consider per method whether or not you want it to be kind of like synchronous running on the callees isolation domain, or whether this should actually be distributed to a background thread or not. Yeah, if we look into this is basically user defaults storage, right? So we iterate over the watch list group from the user defaults, and we initialize a widget favorites group, and then we append all symbols, and then we return. This is nothing heavy, so this is fine. to run on the Kali's actor. Same for the suggestion, same for this one. And now the question is, what is the easiest way to go over it? And I would say let's just start at the top and go over them one by one. This one, this is a select symbol app intent, more than fine to run on the Kali's isolation domain, so we can ignore that one too. And here we have suggested entities, same one, that's all fine. API provider, so these are these are API requests, right? Like networking requests, and I think you always want to make sure they move away from the Kali's isolation domain. However, if we think about it, so if I would make this concurrent, then the very first line will be on a background thread. But you could wonder and ask yourself, like, hey, should this already be asynchronous and moved away or not? And then this method creates the request itself. But here we're actually performing the request. So let me show you how this method looks like, right? So this is a client.request. It's from Alamofire. And the moment we call into that request, you might recognize this. Just see it as a networking request, right? But the moment we await, that's where we want to move away. And so this is an async method. I would say this needs to be the point where it really needs to be distributed away from the Kali sector. So for now, I think to stay in control, we could try a few things. I would actually love to see a non-isolated, non-sending, and default actor isolation will later on make this at default or at main actor. That's not what we want here. So let's at least make this non-isolated. This ensure it will never inherit at main actor once that becomes the default, right? That's basically what we want to say here. Just make sure that the migrate still shows up the warnings. I wish Xcode was a bit more helpful here. The warnings every now and then jump away. Right. So I don't think I want to change too much here, and I want to keep it like this for now. What you can do eventually, right? Like I'm now migrating one by one, but you can also just turn on the feature, turn on default actor isolation, and then start profiling your app. Use instruments and see what it does. And hopefully I get to that point later. It depends a bit on how the warnings will go. But I think that would be fine. This is a feature folder API. Yeah, this is for roadmap. It loads JSON using URL session. Yeah, URL session will make it jump to a different isolation domain. So that's fine. And the JSON decoding, yeah, ideally for performance, it would be better to make this at concurrent. So let's do that. And then for the votes, similar, and voting as well. So we migrated those at least. Then we have a search controller. Interesting, and task detached. That's almost never needed. But probably because this is main actor and we want to move away from it. Indeed. Well, we don't have to use task detached there. Because I think what we could also do is use at concurrent here, which is a new feature and wasn't available back then. So this is actually a better solution. And this the warning goes away as well. So that is great. And this is fetching an asset. And this is for a deep link handler. Deep links should be as quick as possible. I don't want to make it blocking at all. So let's just make sure that it doesn't block any startup things. Right. We still have that API provider big warnings coming up here. You see what it's doing? It's super annoying. So you click on the warning and then it goes away. Yeah, that one was fine. Then we have the shared with you. We can now remove any of these. So it's actually better to do it this way. And then replace. Bloop. All right. And then we need to remove the line break and see if it's still finding, because we got some more results. And that's probably because, yeah, there's no enter. All right. All right. Okay. Yeah, share it with you. Not sure how many of you have used it. I adopted it right away when it was available back in the days. All right, we have a task group. That's why we have a task to jump into an async environment, and it returns its shared symbol. And we should update this shared symbol store. I think this can always happen in the background because this is shared with you. Nobody's waiting for this, so let's make this concurrent. And sending store, because store is not sendable. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense because it's not sendable. So let's see if we can make the store sendable. It's an observable object. Okay, so is this actually, so this must be used on the main thread. Gotcha. Okay, now I remember again. Yeah, so this is also using old code, right? Like state object would not necessarily be needed anymore. This could have been an observable, and we call this update. Why would I? Yeah. Could I do isolated? What is that again? Yeah, you see, so what I was hoping that I could do is using an isolated parameter, which means that this method will be isolated to this task, but that's not possible because it's not an actor, which makes sense. We could potentially do sending, which will move it into the method, but it will not necessarily solve the problem. And now we could also start wondering whether it makes sense to make this at concurrent, or whether we could just make this method, which is all main actor related, right? Because this is main actor. If we make the store main actor as well, then we can solve it as well. Hey, we have a student for the concurrence course. That is awesome. Yeah, now you see me doing things live in action. It's always easier when you make a course, right? Like then you have all the time to look up in things, and this is doing things live. But yeah, start monitoring. I update the store with, yeah, this is only for the simulator, so that makes sense. Yeah, I think I should make this main actor. This is only used on the main actor, so that is fine. Then I can remove this one as well. Then shared symbol store becomes explicitly sendable. So that should be fine too. Shared with you monitor, that's itself. Shared mutable state. Where is its mutable state then? May have shared mutable state. That is interesting. Tell me where that shared mutable state is. Should it be because it could be because of the NS main NS object? So where is this all used? So it's used in the empty view, and we start monitoring it from the main actor as well. And it's basically all main actor related, right? So you see this rabbit hole, right? I'm constantly adding main actor everywhere, and slowly but surely many warnings go away, and now we only have those non-isolated, non-sending by default. The migration we're actually doing warnings left, which makes sense, which is fine. And this will inherit the isolation domain after we turned on the feature, which in this case is fine because it inherits from this task, which is concurrent. So that should all be fine. And once again, this method will eventually also jump into a background thread. So these are also moments where I realized, like, okay, I think for the majority of the code in this project, I should probably just see what happens if we turn this on to yes, and eventually default actor isolation to main actor as well. And sometimes it's going back and forth, right? You try a few things and then you realize things need to be different. So the warnings we just had are gone because the migration was turned off, and the add concurrent we added in a few places did their job, so that is good. And now we probably just need to go over those compiler errors. So we set this to default actor main actor. We have 6 compiler errors left. Now we have this deep links handle where we added the add concurrent before, but now we can't access the symbol query. And I wonder why. Well, probably because this is an SSL extension, so that doesn't have the default actor isolation, but this one, in the background, it's now main actor. Because we enable the default actor isolation to be main actor, right? So we try to access this value from a background thread, which won't work because it's on the main actor. So what you need to do is add non-isolated, and that will remove this compiler error. We went down to 5, so that is great. We could also do it this way, I think, just in case you didn't know. Right, and then we have 5 compiler errors left. So let's see if they have something in common. Main actor isolated conformance widget favorites group to display representable cannot satisfy requirement for a sendable type parameter self. So we got a few fixes. It's always nice to know what app entity does. It doesn't conform to any main actor here or anything like that. But widget's favorite group is in this case a strict. And you could wonder whether this should be on the main actor. I think this is more than fine to be non-isolated. So we opt out to the default actor isolation here. And then selected watch list group here as well. What you might realize now is that we've kind of switched the things that we need to do. Instead of adding main actor everywhere, we now need to add non-isolated everywhere, and we still have a rabbit hole to go through because, like you can see, we changed one thing and a lot of errors come up. It's a bit unreal because we have multiple targets that use the same code, and that can cause these weird errors. You might want to just have the targeted target that you're focusing on, like the stock analyzer main target, to show up the errors. But in this case, it shows it for everything. So yeah, let's just go over for each of those. Yeah, what it like to say is like isolate is conforming to the main actor, right? So it would be applying that, and now widget's favorites group only conforms to app entity on the main actor. But this is actually not what we want because widget favorites group, like we just did, is non-isolated. So I think we should be able to do it in this way. Let's see what it does now. Right, build succeeded. That is actually surprisingly great. I didn't expect that to go that fast. But yeah, that is good news. So we have default actor isolation turned on to main actor, and we have the non-isolated non-sending turned on. Now it's not a saying that the app is actually performing great now. We can actually give it a try and see how it works. But I probably need to do a performance run afterwards and see how the app is performing. And yes, I still have a lot of warnings to go over as well. But yeah, let's just see if the app remains working. Bit of a jump there. Not sure if it was already there, but a lot of these things were already on the main actor, right? So let's see what this does. I don't want to search now. I can't click on it. That is interesting. That is probably a bug that I need to fix later. That is fine. That this works. Okay. Right. Yeah. So I mean, I don't want to bore you with going over all these warnings. I think we 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 migrated the package, we migrated the build settings to default actor isolation and non-isolated non-sending, which is already all great. Before I go into instruments, I actually want to see what happens. So we have 73 warnings right now, but there is something called approachable concurrency as a build setting, and if we turn that on, you will see if I set it to upcoming features. And sorry, yeah, this is pretty small for you. Hopefully you can still see, but monitor these ones because you can see that some of these have the Swift approachable concurrency setting in there. So infer sendable for methods and key path literals, global actor isolated types usability, and disable outward actor isolation inference. These are all related to Swift approachable concurrency. So if I turn this on to yes, you can see those jumping to yes as well. If we now build again, it's going to be interesting to see what it does with the warnings. The warnings doubled. It's not what you want, but it's interesting to see, right? Like approachable concurrency turned on, but we actually run into more warnings. And to not confuse you, right? Like approachable concurrency is very much for new projects as well. If you have this turned on from the get-go, you won't have this experience as I have with an existing project that is just not prepared for Swift 6 just yet. Yeah, so I have a lot of things to do here, as you can see. And these warnings also mention Swift 6. So if you would turn on Swift language mode to 6, these warnings will now suddenly become errors for most of them. You see that we now went to 97 compiler errors. So to really make our project work with Swift 6, we need to go over the code and fix all these compiler errors. And as you can see, not all of them are as difficult as others. These were just variables that I needed to change to constants, to lets, to make the instance type no longer mutable, which all makes sense. And other ones are a bit more difficult to solve. But what I first want to show you now, so let's turn this back to Swift 5 and compile. I want to show you the impact of potentially the default actor isolation to main actor, right? So we're going into the profiler, which is instruments, which is always a bit scary for some developers because they're just not used to using it. But let's see what it can tell us. What I want to look for is ideally I would have done this before, right? Where we could have seen like, okay, what is the activity on the main actor? But what I want to see is like, do we have a lot of hangs? Is there a lot of work happening on the main actor, which shouldn't? And can we potentially already apply a few add concurrents? To make the app more responsive and more performant. So yeah, let's wait till this long build, which is always the case with profiling, completes. And the reason that it builds so long, for those that don't know, so it's actually using the release scheme. So if you go to manage schemes and you select the scheme you want to you want to look into, you can see here the profile is set to release build configuration. So that's why it also can't do an incremental build. That's why profiling takes so much longer. But it's very important You want to profile your application as if it's a release build. And some things that are super slow during debugging will be lightning fast during release. And actually, the instruments module in my course shows an example of this where, the debug build is super slow, or at least slower, and then the release build is blazingly fast. Especially after the optimizations done in instruments. So it's almost there, but those Xcode build numbers are always a bit annoying because they go up on both sides. So yeah, we have templates here, and templates are not instruments. Templates are bringing multiple instruments together. In this case, we have the Strict Concurrency one. So let's open that. And then we need to press recording. I'm not changing too much here. I think it's pretty fine, the defaults. But yeah, the instruments that we have, can I make this bigger? Okay, I hope it's doable for you to follow. The live stream doesn't allow me to zoom in either, I think. Enter full screen, customize. Yeah, size. There we go. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? Okay. Yeah, so for those that don't know, this is my first live stream. Learning while doing, isn't it? Right, so we're starting instruments, and then we have the app open, and let's just click through. And I think what is an interesting one is when I open a detail page, right? That's when a lot of requests happen. So I'll wait it a little bit to make it slow down so the data doesn't gets through, because this is launch data, right? And if I would have clicked right away on the symbol, then it would kind of like mangle each other. So let's click on the symbol and see what happens. It's kind of okay what you see here. We don't see any hangs, so for the user this wasn't even noticeable. Let's now scroll down where we saw a hiccup earlier. We did see a little hiccup, but it's not even enough for a micro hang. Okay, so that is okay as well. Let's switch charts. And OS signposts are actually great for this, where you could track these in your instruments as well. That's probably for another video, but let's change this to a longer period of time. And these are doing network requests, right? So it's going to be interesting to see if these are actually running in a background thread. So this is where we did all those requests in the chart. And now we can see that there's a lot of work happening on the main thread. This is the main thread. And there is work being done on background threads, which is what we kind of expect, because the actual requests happen in the background thread. We have connection loader. But yeah, the thing I wanted to make sure is the performance still okay? And in this case, the app was, you barely noticed anything. So I think it's more than fine that we are running on the default actor isolation. We have a few actors that are live here, some from a revenue cat. This basically shows you which actors are alive and how are they currently running, right? So an actor only allows one to be accessing at the same time. And if your code is not optimized, this queue size will likely go up a lot, because everything is waiting for the one that's inside the actor to go out. And so those are potential improvement points where you could see, like, hey, how can I optimize the actor for my code? So here, these are the tasks that are created, the total number of tasks. We can make that a little bit bigger. You can see the total number of tasks going up, and the tasks that are alive. And you might wonder, like, hey, why are there like 18, 19 tasks alive at this point? If you have like an observer task constantly running, waiting for an async sequence, then that is the task that remains remains alive. There are a few running tasks here as well, and you can actually go. This is pretty interesting. You can see the numbers of the number of running tasks, creating tasks, waiting tasks, suspended tasks, and then task states as well. Um, and what would be useful, right? These tasks don't say a lot here, right? But if we would go into the API provider, um, actually I can't really do it here because we're not creating. So let me just search for task, search controller. Maybe we can analyze this search task, right? So what you then can do is give it a name, search a symbol, and profile again. Now it should actually be a little bit faster. Famous last words. Yeah, what I want to see is like if I search a symbol in the app, how that will look up in the instruments. I want to see that name popping up, right? So this will launch the app again. And then we start exploring and we search for 14net, for example. And now you can see that it actually shows a lot of tasks for that single search, right? So um, you could argue that did we need so many tasks for this search, for example? Well, in this case, we don't do anything um, before executing the task. So for every character that we type in, a new task will basically run. And here we even search for every character, right? So there could be an optimization to only search if the characters, um, yeah, didn't change for like 0.3 seconds, for example. That's already something you can learn from here. At the same time, let me stop this because scrolling is a bit annoying. At the same time, you could also wonder like how bad is this, right? Like the performance is great. Is it really worth my time to optimize? These are nanoseconds, right? It's going super fast. This one was a bit longer. Questionable why. Could be worth looking into, but once again, 3 milliseconds, right? So it's not really worth our time. But yeah, what I at least can conclude is the things that we changed right now didn't really hurt the app performance, and my app is pretty straightforward. It does a few JSON requests and it shows it in a nice UI. If you have like image processing, it's a different story. Um, it's a case per case. That is pretty much the thing. And the things that I did, for those that didn't see it before, this is my course. So we had somebody in the chat that did tell me that he followed my course, but yeah, the course goes into this in depth, right? So also the steps to migrate. As you can see, these are a few previews of the lessons. 73 lessons. They all go in depth about all the steps for Swift concurrency. So make sure, yeah, to check that out. And yeah, for now, I'm gonna stop screen sharing because I don't want to go over the whole project together with you. Um, this has been a nice journey already. Thank you for watching my first live stream. I think it went pretty well. That was my goal. Hopefully, you also learned something from it. And thanks a lot. Stay tuned for more and have a great day.